Do you have an advantage if you take a quarterback and tight end early in your fantasy drafts, or should you wait to draft both positions late? We experiment with the late quarterback and tight end draft strategy on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL betting and fantasy football for sportingnews.com, helping you dominate all season long.
Oh, yes, you will. I love your rankings over there. And we'll, of course, always hit on our rankings every week as well. We will be helping all of you folks who listen to us dominate your leagues and get you that trophy. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, we are doing one more draft strategy, right? Like there's so many different draft strategies that you can use going into your draft. We hit on the two big ones already this week. The zero RB, we experimented with that on Monday, talked through that, did a mock draft. Yesterday, we did the heavy running back strategy, talked through that, did a draft. So if you missed those two episodes, go listen after this show. Today, we're going to do a different type of strategy. We're going to do the late quarterback and tight end strategy. And it's explanatory from the title, right? You wait to take your quarterback and tight end late in your draft. So you stock up on those running backs and wide receivers because you say, those are the most important positions. I want to make sure I'm set there and I can find a good quarterback late and I can find a good tight end that I feel confident in late, or I'm down to just stream the position all season long, right? So, Vinny, what are some pros of using this strategy?
Yeah, I've actually used this strategy. I've actually also taken quarterbacks and tight ends early. So I've used all kinds of strategies to win. This one, let's start with the cons. Let's get the negatives out of the way here. That you're not going to get an elite quarterback or tight end. You just have to live with that. You're not going to have a guy that's going to be leading you or carrying your team to victory. Not, maybe in most weeks, right? It's not going to happen. But there might be a few weeks where the matchup calls for them to explode. But I just have to tell you that first off, that you have to be okay being a little bit uncomfortable, that you're going to have to take some lumps, maybe some bad weeks. But the pro is that you're going to be feeling really good about your running backs and wide receivers all season long. And guess what? Those are hard to replace. The elite guys at those positions are hard to replace. Quarterbacks and tight ends are always popping up, especially the former. So, again, just wrap your head around the fact that you're not going to have Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Any of these guys are not going to be on your team. And if you can come to terms with that and be a little creative, be a little aggressive on the waiver wire, play the matchups, be ready to stream, then this can work for you.
Yeah, exactly. So one disadvantage of taking a quarterback early, like a CJ Stroud, it's not just because we say, oh, well, he's being too costly, right? But it's also the fact you took him early. So you have to play him every single week because you spend a high draft pick on him. Well, what happens when he comes up against a team like the Ravens last year, who are just absolutely dominant on defense, right? And you're like, oh, I don't want to play him, but like, I'm also not going to go waste another spot on my roster to stream a different guy on the waivers. Well, guess what? You can play the matchup so much more with your quarterbacks and tight end if you wait to take them late because you didn't use an expensive draft pick on them. So if you're going to use this strategy, you definitely have to be active in your league. Like you can't be one of those people who just draft and kind of forget about your league and, just let your lineups go from whatever you drafted. You have to be active on the waivers because you're going to be playing the matchups most likely. I mean, you can get lucky and hit on a quarterback. I mean, just a few years ago, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were both going late in drafts, right? Jalen Hurts, before he broke out, was going late. So that could be this year. It's like Jayden Daniels. If you get him in the 8th, 9th round, that's considered a late quarterback. And if he hits, he could hit. Like you could have that opportunity to do that. But most likely, like you said, it's going to be a guy that's not winning you week in and week out. He's going to have some big weeks, but you're going to have to stream the position, play the matchups, and just be consistently looking and doing your research for who's the best guy to play that week.
Yeah, and you may end up saying, okay, I'm going to have a couple quarterbacks. Maybe you wait late and then you take quarterbacks back to back. Give yourself some options. See what the streaming combinations might work. There are actually tools for that. If you go on Fantasy Pros and other sites, you can see the charts, right, where the matchups project to be good. We know the matchups all can change here in a hurry because defenses kind of fluctuate from year to year, but you can get the best idea, right? If your guy's going up against the Jets or 49ers, you don't want to maybe force him into the lineup against those defenses, but you might have an alternative that has really easy matchups the same exact week. So that's another thing you can do, kind of line it up. And now it's very hard to do again. It's hard to see that much in the future, but that's fun. It's a fun challenge, especially having the platoon situation. You're making use of your roster fully, right? And you're not a super flex or 2 QB, but technically you are in a 2 QB league because everyone's taking a starter and a backup, figure out how to best use them. So it can really be nice here. And with tight end, I think the one difference is that you might find a starter to stumble upon, one like a Trey McBride at some point in the season. But overall, I think with tight end, you might have to play the streaming game and just look at the matchups. And we know after a while, one of the best stats to follow is tight end points allowed. Those usually don't lie. At some point in the season, if a team is bad against the tight end, giving up touchdowns and yards, that's going to continue. So, like I get 4 and 5, then go get a guy to stream against this team because it was always one, like the Cardinals or one of those teams that's always bad against the tight end.
Yeah, it typically means their linebackers or inside linebackers or their
Yeah.
safeties are really struggling and they don't have a fix for that, right? So it is
Yeah.
always a good thing to keep an eye on, and we'll help you figure out those streamers throughout the year, of course. I think this could also be a great year to do this too, because it seems like there's so much depth at both the quarterback and tight end position this year, more than normal. So this strategy could really work out for people this year. We're going to test that at the end of today's show in a mock draft. But first, we want to talk about some players we're going to be targeting, right? If we're using this strategy and we're going into a draft, some guys we're going to want late in their drafts at the quarterback and tight end position. We will hit on those players right after a quick break. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I have used this app so many times, especially when I used to live in Pittsburgh, right down the street from the Steelers stadium. And, whenever I got FOMO, I would go onto the app on Sunday morning and decide I needed to go to the game. And I knew this was a ticketing app I needed to use because you get images of receipt before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. It takes like 2 seconds to buy the tickets, 2 taps and you're set. And tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's hit on some guys that we're looking to take if we're utilizing this late quarterback tight end strategy. So we're loading up on running backs and wide receivers early. But later in the draft, who are some quarterbacks? Let's start there first that you're eyeing, because I know we love Jayden Daniels, but at this point, he is moving up draft boards pretty quick. So I don't know how late you can get him. But a guy we love is Brock Purdy. It seems like Brandon Ayuk is going to be there. I don't know. I can't believe we still don't know that decision, what's going on there. But like Brock Purdy's a guy we love late. Jared Goff is a guy I love late. And I think he's great in this type of strategy because he's the perfect streaming quarterback where you know when to play him and when not. So like at home, you play Jared Goff. When he's not at home and he's outdoors, you don't. But also, is there anyone else that you're loving late in drafts?
Yeah, Caleb Williams is starting to come into focus as well because Jayden Daniels' price is going up. So Williams has kind of stayed steady at 14 or 15. So that's basically the last quarterback you could take in a deeper league, right? As your starter. So something you can look at. I think also the question is how late do you want to wait? I think you wait after the Jordan Love, Dak Prescott kind of combo, right? I think that's a good strategy. I think you wait till at least 2/3 of your league have a starting quarterback. So that's 8 in a 12-team league, so on and so forth. If you have a smaller league, make sure that you're not one of the 2/3 of the managers taking a quarterback. Like just wait it out. And another sneaky thing, track who's taking a quarterback. So you know which parts of the draft, oh, they're not going to take a quarterback. There's always someone that messes things up and takes a backup quarterback a little too early. That's going to happen, but keep tracking. But I think Caleb Williams is a guy. I like Matthew Stafford as well a little bit later that you could get. I mean, you kind of have all kinds of options, just a matter of how late you want to wait. Now, another thing I would do is grab one of these veterans. If I have a veteran, I'm going to go later and maybe take a shot at Will Levis or Bryce Young, because that's kind of what I did last year. I had Joe Burrow on one team. He started slowly, didn't do well. Added Jordan Love later, and it worked out well that I could pivot to him and start him later. So that's what I would do. I try to have a guy with upside later if we're going to have an older guy that could get hurt, or as a pocket passer, maybe mix it up with a running passer that has some abilities here. So I think you can wait as late as possible. And if you're waiting super late, go for 3. Get 3 and see what happens. You can cut one, see if you want you to do a 3 QB streamer.
I will say, like in a 10-team or 12-team league, I really think this strategy can work out really well because there's 10 guys that are all, I think could be really great this year. I mean, Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Stroud, Richardson, Burrow, Murray, Jordan Love, and Dak Prescott. Those are the first 10 guys in ADP. I would be happy with any of them, right? Like maybe not at cost, I'd be happy with any of them, but in particular, like if they were on my team, I feel pretty confident. And then the next two are Brock Purdy and Jayden Daniels, who again, love both of those. And then you still have Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, like you said. So really, there is no reason to go high on quarterbacks this year because like Josh Allen, we don't know what he's going to be without his playmakers, right? It does seem like Jalen Hurts is maybe the safest this year to go with. So I'm fine with waiting. Now with tight ends, I do like taking them earlier this year. I want one of the top 6 guys. It is a deeper position than ever. With Dalton Kincaid breaking out and Trey McBride breaking out, and obviously Sam Laporta last year, like he's added to it. And then you have hope for George Kittle with Kirk Cousins. So and then Jake Ferguson, we love too. So there is like a good 7, 8 tight ends I really like this season. I do like going early with Sam Laporta, but if I were to wait, obviously Jake Ferguson would be my first choice. But let's say you even wait further than Jake Ferguson. Who's the guy that you're eyeing in the double-digit rounds of your draft?
Yeah, I've talked a lot about Pat Freiermuth. I know it doesn't sound all that exciting, and Michelle's not high on him as a Steelers fan as much as she should be. I'll just say that because he's going to be on the field a lot. He was on the field about half the time last year. He's going to be on the field pretty much all the time because this is a very frequent personnel usage here with Arthur Smith. He's a good blocker, and they need weapons, right? There's not a lot of weapons here after George Pickens. I mean, Roman Wilson has been hurt, the rookie. So, again, we've talked about why we like him a little bit because of the opportunity and the targets there, but there are all kinds of guys you could look at. I mean, David Njoku, if he slips a little bit, then I like him a little bit later. Taysom Hill, we've talked up a little bit as a good value in a lot of leagues, going in the middle to late teens. I talked about K. Dotton maybe being a sleeper, but you just have to be prepared. You might have to stream tight ends, right? That comes with it.
Okay.
But I'm with you, Michelle. Ferguson would be the guy that I'm looking at a lot because he's kind of that. Again, if you go through 2/3 of the managers have tight ends, you're looking at 8, 9 who's sitting there. Ferguson's a really good spot here. They traded Peyton Hendershot to the Chiefs, so there's no real guy behind him at this point that could steal Ferguson's looks here. So I would circle Ferguson. One other guy we'll throw out is TJ Hawkinson. Like if he's out there, this is great. You can get a starting tight end late. Just have to survive until he gets back. So that could be another way of streaming Hawkinson and then the streamer week to week until he can return.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going with the strategy of taking a tight end late and you're not utilizing a high draft pick on a tight end and you're in a league with an IR spot, TJ Hawkinson's a great pick late. Grab him. Then after the draft, you get to plug him into the IR spot and pick up another guy. And then you just have to survive the first 4 weeks or whatever he gets back. So I really like that advice from you. We're going to now try this strategy out in a mock draft. We're going to do a 12-round mock draft on Sleeper, 10 teams, no kicker, no defense. And neither of us are going to take a tight end or quarterback until at least the 7th round. It might be
I'll
later
follow
than
the
that.
rules this time. Yeah.
Yeah, at least the 7th round. So the first 6 picks have to be running backs or wide receivers. After that, you could do whatever you want. So we're going to get into this mock draft right after this quick break. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are going through the late quarterback and tight end strategy. We're about to test out this experiment and the strategy with a mock draft. If you want to follow along on YouTube, we will have the draft board up. I am going to share that right now. If you're not, we'll talk through it. So no worries. You'll still hear who we're drafting and who's gone and who's available. Vinny's going to be drafting from the 2 spot. I'm going to be drafting from the 5 spot. Now, I've been drafting from the middle for each of these type of strategies. So at the end of today, I'm going to post them all on Twitter, my different drafts, just to see which one I like best and have people vote on it. That will be fun. So let's start out this draft here. Again, we cannot take a quarterback or tight end until at least the 7th round. Let's get it started. Starting draft now.
I'm
Jamar
not used to
Chase.
picking this early, man, on the clock here. But look, if I have to go late, I got to get Chris McCaffrey here. I guess Jamar Chase went. That I would not expect that in a lot of your drafts. McCaffrey's probably gone, but I have to take him in this draft.
Yeah, this the sleeper app sometimes throws craziness at us. So when Jamar Chase, Vinny took CMC, then Tyreek Hill, Bijan Robinson at 4. It's my pick at 5. I'm gonna go with CeeDee Lamb. He got his deal done. I don't have to worry about him missing time. He's a beast. Gonna get 1 gazillion targets this year. So starting my draft with CeeDee Lamb. Now we have neither of us at the end here. So we'll see all these players, these great players going off the board. We have Amon Ra, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison at wide receivers off. A bunch of running backs went as well with Brees, Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, and Saquon Barkley off the board. It's my pick again. I know there's all these rumors about, not rumors, but all these scares because Kyren Williams is going to be a punt returner. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Like, that's going to ruin him at all. I'm not worried about it. I still think Kyren Williams is my running back 4. I'm still comfortable with him at that spot in my ranking. So I'm going with Kyren Williams as my running back 2. And I am taking him over Garrett Wilson, who's the top wide receiver available.
All right, I'm back on the clock here, and look, this decision might have been made easy because I just lost Garrett Wilson and Derrick Henry in between, of course, the 2 targets I was looking at. So I'm just going to go. Look, I cannot even look at the quarterback and tight end availability, so I'm just going to get Devontae Adams. I still like him a lot, and he's going to score with
You got
Gardner
the 2
Minshew.
old folks and CMC and Devontae
Yeah,
Adams.
yeah, I'm fine with it. I think
You're
Adams
backed
is
up.
going to have a pretty good year. So, all right, I'm back up again. Oh, look who's sitting there. It's Brandon Ayuk. I can look at him. I do like Devin Achan quite a bit. You know what? I'm going to go with Devin Achan. Look, I don't like that old comment, so I'm going to go young here with Achan.
All right, I'm surprised you didn't go Josh Jacobs, and he did make it to
Oh,
me. With the news
yeah.
that AJ Dillon is on IR, Marshawn Lloyd is banged up. I think Josh Jacobs. I mean, yeah, he's moving up my rankings for sure. So I'm gonna go Josh Jacobs. That means I started with CeeDee Lamb, Kyren Williams, and Josh Jacobs. Solid start so far. After me, the first tight end went off the board, and Travis Kelce. Jalen Hurts, first quarterback off the board. Interesting. He went. Did he go before Josh Allen? Oh no, Josh Allen went, and Jalen Hurts, and then Patrick Mahomes. So lots of quarterbacks off the board early here. That's good for us, right? When
Yeah.
when we're going with this strategy, we want these quarterbacks and tight ends taken, so these better running backs and wide receivers fall. I'm up again. The top wide receiver available is Nico Collins, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. Not in love with any of those. Top running backs: James Cook, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker. You know what? I think I'm going to reach here and go with my boy Malik Neighbors, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's too much a reach, so I'll just say that. Now, I could go in many ways here because we are looking at a flex, and I do see a running back I like. And I do like the wide receivers, though. And I don't want to get, you know what? I'm going to use a little bit of a strategy here, and I'm going to take a running back who I don't think is going to return. Looking at what the team in front, team one took 3 wide receivers. I'm going to grab the running back first and force them out of my position. And I'm going to take James Cook.
Very nice. Now, team one apparently doesn't. They're going zero RB strategy,
Yeah,
right? We did
I'm
this
fine with
strategy, yes, or a couple days ago, so we know what they're doing here. They have 4 wide receivers, pretty wild. But they went with Lamar Jackson and Nico Collins. So right now, your team is CMC, Devontae Adams, Devin Achan, and James Cook. You going with another running back or going wide receiver here?
I'm going to go wide receiver here, and I've talked him up quite a bit. Like, these are really close guys, but I think I'm going to go Devonta Smith. I still think he's going to have a big year with receptions and yards. So I'm going to go ahead and take him.
I love that. I would have taken him if he fell back to me. After your pick, it went Joe Mixon and DK Metcalf. It's my choice. I like a lot of these wide receivers here in Michael Pittman and Zay Flowers and Tank Dell and Amari Cooper. But I'm going to go with Amari Cooper because I went kind of risky with Malik Neighbors. In case I'm wrong on him, in case Daniel Jones is just so bad he can't beat him, I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, who's going to be the clear lead target for the Browns. And he's been good no matter what quarterback really has been with him. So I'm going with Amari Cooper. Now I have 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs. After my pick, it went Kamara, Michael Pittman, Aaron Jones, Mark Andrews, another tight end, another quarterback went off the board with CJ Stroud, another tight end went off the board with Trey McBride, and then also Anthony Richardson, quarterback. So quarterbacks and tight ends are flying off the board, as well as Zay Flowers and Tank Dell went as well. Now, again, I mean, these wide receivers in this area, I just love them. So at the top here, you got T. Higgins and George Pickens. Love both of those guys. And I do really like James Conner, but I don't think I like him as much as I like the upside of going with George Pickens, a guy that there's nobody else on the Steelers. Can he be a true wide receiver 1? We don't know yet. But I'm going to take the chance that he can be, and that Russell Wilson won't be the worst. So went with George Pickens. I'm loaded at wide receiver with CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Amari Cooper, and George Pickens.
Yeah, I'm going for my guy again at wide receiver. It's Terry McLaurin. And Jahan Dotson trade, look, Luke McCaffrey and a bunch of different receivers, Diami Brown. So he's going to dominate targets with Jayden Daniels. I'm going Terry McLaurin. And Devonta Smith and Terry McLaurin, I'm banging the table for those guys quite a bit in these drafts.
I will say we're in the 7th round now, so you can take a tight end or quarterback
Okay.
if you want
I
to.
follow the rules, yes.
A lot of tight ends off the board already. We got Kelsey off, Laporta, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid. So all the top elite guys kind of off already. So are you going to go tight end quarterback or stick with running back wide receiver?
You know what? Let's look here at the values. You know what? I'm going to go for a tight end that we also like to break out this year. George Kittle's on the board. Look, I might just diversify a little bit, but I do have McCaffrey, so maybe I don't want Kittle. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts again. So I end up with Kyle Pitts once again.
And that's an amazing value, right? It doesn't even feel like you're going late right in there.
Yeah.
It feels really good. So at quarterbacks available, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love. I mean, at this point, that doesn't even feel like late quarterbacks to me. I'm going to keep loading up on my running backs and wide receivers. James Conner is still sitting there. I love him as long as he's healthy, but he's my running back 3. So if he gets hurt, okay. So I'm going to take James Conner with the 7-5 and keep waiting for my quarterback and tight end. After that went Ramondre Stevenson, Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, Najee Harris, George Kittle, Jaden Reed, Zamir White, Raheem Mostert, Rome Odunze, and Tony Pollard. It's so interesting. Rome Odunze just keeps getting higher and higher in draft boards. My boy Zach Moss is sitting there. Apparently I have a lot of boys that I like. Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, all interesting. Or I can go tight end, and I think I'm going to take my tight end and Jake Ferguson because once Jake Ferguson's gone, I don't feel good about any of these guys. So I'm going to go with Jake Ferguson. I think he can be a top 5 tight end this year.
All right, I'm back on the clock, and look, it's tempting, but you know what? I see that team 1 has a quarterback, so I'm going to roll the dice and kind of say that I'm going to get a quarterback, maybe if not the next round, the round after. So let's play that a little bit. And let's look at running back and wide receiver. I think I need a little bit of insurance here. And if one pick doesn't work out here in HN, I have a guy with upside. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks.
Okay.
That's some upside. Now, as I suggested, or as I kind of postulated here, there's no quarterback off the board here. It's looking like Michelle and I are kind of on an island without quarterbacks here. So I want to see. Maybe I'm going to force Michelle's hand and see what she does at the quarterback first. But I'm going to draft a wide receiver I like with upside in Calvin Ridley.
I was really hoping Dak Prescott didn't make it back to me because I don't necessarily want to take him. I do really like Dak Prescott, but I'll have CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and Dak Prescott. So I'm going to live and die off the Cowboys offense, which isn't a terrible thing because they've been the number one offense now, like pretty much every year. So I think I'm going to go with that. I mean, that's a triple stack, right? Or double stack, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. He's going to be passing the CD and Ferguson only. And hopefully that's how that works out. Afterwards, no tight ends or quarterbacks went. So I could have maybe waited on a quarterback. Like you said, everyone else already had theirs. But it went McConkey, Godwin, Addison, Nick Chubb, Deontay Johnson, Keon Coleman, Devin Singletary, Hollywood Brown, and Christian Watson, as well as Jaylen Warren was in there as well. So I'm going to look at the running backs and the wide receivers. And I'm going with Jackson Smith and Jigba again. I'm starting to get hotter and hotter on him as we get closer to the season. He's my wide receiver 5, I believe. So gives me a nice upside, and I don't have to count on him too early in the season.
Now, this is very interesting. 9 teams have a starting quarterback. There's one team that does not. That is mine. And I'm sitting here, and this is crazy. A couple of the targets we have, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams. Look, I'm going to get the guy I want because I have a feeling team 1 might be going after a backup quarterback. So I'm going to do this because I'm okay with the other 2 and go with the upside guy. And I'm going to take Caleb Williams, and I want to see what team 1 does. I'm going to take the upside guy first. Okay, see, they made my decision a lot easier. Like, I went with the upside guy, but I also knew Jordan Love or Brock Purdy was in the back pocket here. So I'm going to do this. Or, you know what? There's something else I could do, Michelle.
I was going to say, Jayden. I'm surprised you took Caleb Williams over Jayden Daniels.
Yes. You know what? I may have not seen. I assume Jayden Daniels is gone, and that was not good. He might be gone in other cases like this. So, but I ended up with both of them. So back to back, right? I feel really good about that. Toggling 2 of the top rookies.
Now, I will say, with Dak Prescott, with him, he's also the home road quarterback, right? So much better at home. I am tempted to pair him with Jared Goff and just like hope most weeks, one of them's going to be home, right? It's tempting. I might consider it if Jared Goff's there with my next pick. But I'm going to stick to running back right now. And I'm going to go with Jerome Ford. I don't know why he's still so low in ADP, but he's going to be the Browns starting running back for at least the first 4 weeks. And we'll see what happens after that. Now, Tua went at quarterback, but no Jared Goff off the board yet. And it looks like Jared Goff might make it back to me, and he did. And I'm kind of like the strategy here. I haven't looked at their schedules to see how much their home games like match, but Dak and Jared Goff at home are 2 of the best quarterbacks at home. So whoever one's home at any given week, I'm playing him. And then I'll have to figure it out, I guess, when they're away. But after that went Zeke, and TJ Hawkinson did go off the board. I did consider him to place on IR. Who are you taking with your last pick, Vinny?
Yeah, I think I am thinking I need either running back or wide receiver depth here. Wide receiver is starting to look gross. So I'm going to go to running back, and let's see here. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. You know what? Let's just make a pick here. And we'll just pick, let's see. I'm just going to pick someone here that I feel a little bit better about. Oh, geez. This is really tough. It really kind of dies here. So, all right, I'm just going to take Chuba Hubbard and get the other part of
And that works out well because you have Jonathan Brooks, so Chuba
Yeah.
Hubbard will be starting the first 4 weeks. Now, this was my final team with this late quarterback tight end strategy. My wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Amari Cooper, George Pickens, and Jackson Smith, the Jigba. My running backs are Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, and Jerome Ford. I took Jake Ferguson as my tight end, and I'm trying out the strategy of Dak Prescott and Jared Goff late in my drafts just to play whoever is home. Kind of like that strategy. Vinny, what is your team? Run it down for us.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, Devin H.N. starting running backs. James Cook is in the flex, the 4th rounder. The 2nd rounder is Devontae Adams, my wide receiver 1. They have Devonta Smith and Terry McLaurin. Kyle Pitts was my break the seal on tight ends and quarterbacks there in round 7. Jonathan Brooks and Chuba Hubbard there. And then I did it a lot like Michelle did, 2 quarterbacks, kind of not back to back, but or I did back to back, but I did have Williams and Daniels and trying to get some value out of those guys. So again, this strategy, I'll be honest with you, this is the strategy I probably use the most personally to win a
Yeah,
lot of leagues. Yeah, so I mean, this is the way I look at it, especially if you're in. Well, this is the what you would do, I think, in 1 QB leagues.
yeah, I like this strategy a lot. Load up on the other positions. You can find good tight ends and quarterbacks late. That is it for today's episode. I'm going to be posting all 3 different drafts I had from different strategies on Twitter at BallBlast'em. If you want to check that out, if you want to vote, go ahead and do that. We will be back tomorrow talking about the latest news, especially with like all the cuts and whose stock is rising for fantasy and whose is going down. It will be a fun episode. Don't miss that. Thank you all. Have a great night.